Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new on this channel, then please subscribe and press the bell notification icon for more gameplays, reviews and updates. Those Who Remain. Those Who Remain is a psychological horror puzzle game, developed by Camel 101, and released on PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch in May 2019. Psychological thrillers are a popular genre, as they give us strange and sometimes supernatural enemies, unreliable narrators, dark mysteries and a real feeling of dread. Those Who Remain gets off to a strong start, introducing the players to Edward, the conflicted protagonist, who heads to a motel on the edge of the small town of Dormant to meet his secret lover Diane. Edward is determined to break it off with Diane, and try to make things right with his wife and daughter. But when Edward arrives at the motel, Diane isn't anywhere to be seen. Upon further investigation, there doesn't seem to be anyone around except for the person who steals Edward's car, forcing him to be suddenly alone in the dark. As he faces the demons around him, he'll also have to confront the demons of his past. Each area in Those Who Remain operates like a mini escape room. You investigate the location for clues, pick up items, and solve various puzzles, in order to move on to the next area. I sailed through most of the puzzles with relative ease. However, there were a few occasions that left me scratching my head due to their overly vague nature. The player wanders about a lot just to look for things into a luxurious mansion, the town's post office, the National Library, and even traverses through into an alternate dimension to hunt down more keys, letters, and in one instance, weed killers. From the very beginning, players will notice enemies that lurk in every dark corner. Get too close to these figures, and you'll be sucked into the darkness, and have to start again from a previous checkpoint. Thankfully, flipping a light switch, powering up a generator, or using the headlights of a vehicle can illuminate the nearby area, causing these evils to disappear. But these enemies never move, so once you learn to avoid them, they quickly lose their creepy charm. Apart from these dark-dwelling faceless enemies, players also encounter other creatures, such as a gruesome naked monster, who instantly takes you down if it spots you. You'll also speak with Annika, a young girl who died in Dormant. The last face that you'll see throughout the game is a man wearing a mask, who encourages Edward to make difficult choices, such as condemning a young boy for bullying a girl, or forgiving the boy for his youthful indiscretions. These choices affect the story, and will give the players different final outcomes, depending on what they choose. You will be regularly illuminating dark areas, to make the antagonists who lurk in the shadows disappear. You do this by casting light over them, in a somewhat similar way, as in Alan Wake. Other times, you'll have to locate a doorway to an alternate reality, where the physics are different to the one you came from. These puzzles are the most interesting, where you have to interact with something in this reality, to change something in the other, in order to progress. In some cases, you will have to sneak around an enemy that's roaming the area, which is more frustrating than scary, for multiple reasons. The game doesn't have stealth mechanics that allow you to hide, like in Outlast, and you can't really outrun them either. Not only that, but their design doesn't evoke any fear, as their appearances look dated, and when caught by one, the death animations for the player appear very robotic. Regardless, Those Who Remain is still at its best, when it focuses on puzzles, especially those that see you traverse into an alternate reality. The game's many physics-based 3D puzzles range from monotonous to mind-boggling. Often incorporating turning on light switches, or reading every single piece of paper throughout an environment, nothing really ever has to be solved. The player just resorts to trial and error to progress, and no mechanics are ever taught or learned. Throughout the 3-hour story, puzzles never increased in difficulty. The narrative in Those Who Remain is lacking. Don't get me wrong, there are parts that are serviceable, and it is enough to keep you going, but it can be ham-fisted and cliché. The plot is at its strongest during the first and second acts, when you're trying to piece together the mystery of what happened to this town, and its residents. Unfortunately, the final act becomes all too predictable, and I found myself in a rather familiar territory. Those Who Remain leans heavily on religious commentary. Around halfway through the game, it introduces a new gameplay and narrative element. Whilst solving the puzzles of an area, you will be tasked with searching for clues, investigating a character's past transgressions, which serves the overarching plot. When you have found enough clues, you will have to judge the individual. The choice of absolution or retribution is entirely down to you. The horror of this game suffers from dated presentation, and the torment comes from a few obtuse puzzles. The amalgamation between horror game and puzzle games is impressive, and somewhat makes it more creative. There are a couple of problems with this. Everything about moving in this game is a massive pain, so edging into rooms is more a matter of trial and error than precision. Solving puzzles brings some basic joy, but puzzle solutions are painfully linear. Objects that were not previously interactable will become so only when the game tells you to. For example, you are informed that the door is locked, and only then will the option to find a key becomes available. So, unlike in any other adventure game, you can't have picked up the key beforehand, because it didn't exist earlier. Those Who Remain takes place in two different dimensions. The first is the real world. While it looks like a normal place, the faceless figures hide in the ever-present darkness, waiting to scoop you up if you dare venture too close. The other world feels even darker, but corresponds directly to the real world. You'll need to frequently jump between the two to progress the game forward. For instance, if there is a door blocked in the real world, you may be able to unlock it in the other, making it accessible in both. Those Who Remain is still far from perfect. The game relies on stealth in some sections, requiring you to sneak or run away from enemies, but it has no mechanics to support it. You can't crouch or move quietly through a level, and you can't hide in closets or under furniture to avoid enemies. It's hard not to compare Those Who Remain to games like Amnesia or Outlast, as they feel quite similar in many ways, but those games fully embrace a stealthy approach. With two different endings, Those Who Remain is worth playing through all the way, at least once to find out how the story ends. While this game has a wonderfully foreboding atmosphere, right from the start, it soon fizzles out, after seeing the same creatures staring at you from the shadows for the entirety of the game, but again, it is a puzzle game and not a hunting house, and definitely worth buying it. So that concludes my thoughts on this game. Thank you for watching, and if you're new on this channel, then please make sure to subscribe, like and comment. Press the bell notification icon for more gameplays, reviews and updates.
What was that?